Hello, my friends. I am so glad you are here with me today. Take a deep breath and relax. Now, close your eyes for a moment. Imagine you are touching a piece of fabric. It is smooth. It is cool against your skin. It feels like water, but it is solid. When light touches it, the fabric seems to glow. This fabric is silk. Have you ever worn silk? Have you ever felt it between your fingers? Maybe you have a silk scarf. When you touch it, you feel something special. It feels expensive. It feels precious. But have you ever stopped to wonder, where did this magical fabric come from? Here is something that might surprise you. For almost 3,000 years, only one country in the world knew how to make silk. Think about that for a moment. 3,000 years. That country was China. And they guarded this secret like it was the most valuable treasure on earth. If you tried to take silkworms out of China, you could be killed. Yes, people died to protect this secret. But here is the strange part. Even though silk came from one small place, it changed the entire world. It connected East and West. It created the world's first global trade route. Wars were fought over it. Empires grew rich from it. So tonight, my friends, we are going on a journey. We are going to discover how a little worm became the thread that connected the world. This is not just a story about fabric. This is a story about human desire, about secrets, and about how beauty can change everything. Sit back, relax, and let's begin. This is the secret history of silk. Before silk spread beyond China, life was very different. Imagine you are a wealthy person in ancient Rome, 2,000 years ago. You have gold in your treasury. You have servants in your house. You have marble columns and painted walls. But your clothes? Your clothes are made of wool and linen. Think about the clothes people wore in those days. In Europe, they had wool from sheep. It was warm, yes, but it was heavy. It was rough against the skin. They had linen from plants. It was lighter, but it wrinkled easily. It looked plain. These fabrics did their job. They covered the body. They kept people warm in winter. But my friends, they did not shimmer. They did not glow in the light. They did not make you feel like something magical was touching your skin. Now, imagine this. You are sitting in your Roman house. A trader arrives from the Far East. He speaks of a mysterious land beyond the mountains and deserts. He speaks of a fabric that looks like liquid light. A fabric so soft that it feels like touching a cloud. A fabric that costs more than its weight in gold. Can you imagine how that must have felt? To hear about something so beautiful, so far away, so impossible to reach? This was the world before silk. People everywhere wore simple clothes, but they had no access to true luxury fabric. There was a hunger for something more, something beautiful, something that would set them apart. The world was waiting for a secret to escape. Our story begins in China, more than 5,000 years ago. But we must be careful here, my friends, because the origin of silk is wrapped in legend and mystery. According to an ancient Chinese legend, there was an empress named Lei. She lived around the year 2700 before Christ. One day, she was sitting in her garden under a mulberry tree. She was drinking tea. The air was warm. Birds were singing. Suddenly, a small white cocoon fell from the tree above. It landed gently in her cup. The hot tea began to soften the cocoon. Lei picked it up, curious. As she touched it, a thread began to unwind. She pulled gently, and the thread kept coming. It was incredibly long and strong. It shimmered in the sunlight. She was amazed. Lei realized that these cocoons could be turned into thread, and this thread could be woven into fabric. This is how, the legend says, silk was discovered. Is this story true? We do not know. It is a beautiful legend. What we do know is this. The Chinese were making silk at least 5,000 years ago. Ancient silk has been found in tombs. This much is certain, but here is what is truly magical, my friends. The process of making silk is like witnessing a small miracle. Let me explain. A tiny moth lays hundreds of eggs. These eggs become small caterpillars called silkworms. These silkworms eat only mulberry leaves, nothing else. They eat and eat and eat, day after day. They grow bigger and bigger. Then something extraordinary happens. The silkworm begins to make a thread from its own body. It moves its head back and forth, thousands of times. It is wrapping itself in its own thread. After 2 or 3 days, the silkworm has created a complete cocoon around itself, one single thread, sometimes over 900 meters long. Inside the cocoon, the caterpillar slowly becomes a moth. But the Chinese discovered something. If you put these cocoons in hot water, you can carefully unwind the thread. This thread is silk. Think about this. You need thousands of cocoons to make one piece of fabric. You need to care for thousands of hungry silkworms. You need mulberry trees for them to eat. This was not simple. This was an art form. This was patience and skill. And for almost 3,000 years, only China knew how to do it. They kept the secret, and they grew very, very rich. Now, my friends, let us travel to the ancient city of Rome around the year 50 before Christ. Imagine you are standing in the marketplace. The air smells of bread baking and horses and dust. People are buying and selling. Voices fill the air. Then, a trader from the Far East arrives. He carries a small bundle wrapped in plain cloth. The crowd gathers around him. He unwraps it slowly, carefully. Inside is a length of red silk. The crowd gasps. People lean forward. They cannot help themselves. The fabric seems to glow. The red is so deep it looks like captured fire. It is lighter than anything they have ever seen. The color is so rich. Everyone wants to touch it. How much? Someone asks. The price is enormous. Sometimes the same weight in gold, but people pay it. Wealthy Romans are obsessed with silk. They must have it. But here is the problem. The Romans have no idea how silk is made. They have never seen a silkworm. Some Romans believed that silk grew on trees, like fruit. Others thought it was made from the feathers of special birds. They truly did not know. All they knew was that this precious fabric came from somewhere far to the east, a mysterious land they called Serica, the land of silk. Isn't it strange? They loved silk so much, but they did not know what it was. The demand for silk was so high that Roman gold was flowing east. Think about that for a moment. An entire empire was sending its wealth across the world for a fabric. The economy was being affected. But people wanted silk too much to stop. This created trade routes. Merchants from China began to carry silk westward. They traveled through mountains and deserts. They crossed through Central Asia. They passed through Persia. The journey could take years. The silk changed hands many times. Each person added to the price. This network became known as the Silk Road. It was not one single road. It was many paths stretching over 7,000 kilometers from China to Europe. It was the most important trade network in the ancient world. But silk was not the only thing that traveled these roads. Ideas traveled too. Religions traveled. Buddhism spread from India to China along the Silk Road. Paper and new inventions traveled west. Art and music traveled east. The world became smaller. People from different lands met and learned from each other. But still, China kept its secret. No matter how many questions foreign buyers asked, the Chinese did not tell. Anyone who tried to smuggle silkworms out of the country could face death. For China, this was economic power. For over 1,000 years, the secret held. But secrets, my friends, rarely last forever. Let us travel to the year 550. We are now in the Byzantine Empire, in the great city of Constantinople. The Byzantine Emperor Justinian has a problem. Silk is very expensive. His empire needs it. He wants to make silk himself. But how? No one outside China knows the secret. Then, according to legend, 2 monks arrive at his court. These monks had traveled far to the east. They had been to China, they had seen how silk was made, and they had a plan. The story says that these monks hid silkworm eggs inside their hollow bamboo walking staffs. They smuggled them out of China and brought them all the way to Constantinople. Can you imagine the risk? If they had been caught, they would have been killed. Now, we must be careful. This story is widely told, but we are not certain it happened exactly this way. What we do know is this. By the year 550, the Byzantine Empire began making its own silk. Somehow, the secret had traveled. The Byzantines set up silk workshops. They learned to raise silkworms. They planted mulberry trees. Only the emperor could wear certain colors of silk. Purple silk was reserved for royalty alone. It became a symbol of power. From Byzantium, silk knowledge slowly spread. Arab merchants learned the art. By the year 1100, European knights saw silk production in the Middle East during their travels. They brought knowledge back home. Italy became famous for silk weaving. Cities like Venice and Florence grew rich. Then France became a major silk producer. By the 1400s, silk was made across Europe. But it remained expensive. Why? Because the process was still difficult. Silkworms are fragile creatures. They can die easily. Making silk required patience and great skill. Silk was not just fabric anymore. It was a statement. When you wore silk, you were showing wealth and status. From Chinese emperors to European kings, silk became the universal language of luxury. The forbidden thread had escaped, and it had woven itself into the world. Now, my friends, let us think about what silk did to the world. First, silk created the world's first global economy. The Silk Road was not built by one government or one empire. It grew naturally because people needed it, because they desired it. Second, silk changed what wealth looked like. Before silk, wealth was land or gold, things you could touch and count. Silk introduced something new, luxury as power. If you could wear silk, you were showing everyone that you were connected to the wider world. Third, silk became a tool of diplomacy. Chinese emperors gave silk as gifts to foreign leaders. These were not just presents, they were symbols. They said, "We are powerful. We honor you." Silk became a language without words. Fourth, silk carried culture across borders. When a Persian merchant bought Chinese silk, he saw Chinese patterns and designs. When a European weaver studied silk techniques, she learned new forms of art. Silk carried beauty from one place to another. But there is also a darker side, and we must speak of it. Empires fought over the trade routes. Armies protected the caravans. People died in wars over control of these roads. And later, when European powers reached Asia by sea, they sometimes exploited silk workers for profit. The Industrial Revolution brought machines that made silk cheaper. But those machines took away jobs from skilled workers. Progress always has a price. Still, silk connected people from Rome to Japan. It made strangers into trading partners. It proved that humans everywhere, no matter where they live, share a love of beauty. Let us now move to modern times. What happened to silk as the world changed? By the 1800s, new machines transformed silk production. In Japan, silk became a major export. Japanese silk was famous around the world for its quality. Then, in the early 1900s, scientists created synthetic fabrics: rayon, nylon, polyester. These fabrics were much cheaper than silk. They were easier to make. For a while, it seemed like natural silk might disappear. Why raise silkworms when you can make fabric in a factory? But silk survived. Why? Because nothing truly feels like silk. You can copy it, you can imitate it, but you cannot replace it. There is something about real silk that touches the heart. Today, silk is still made in many countries. China makes about 70% of the world's silk. India, Uzbekistan, and Thailand also produce silk. But the industry has changed. In China, some silk production uses modern factories with machines. But there are also small villages where families still raise silkworms the traditional way. Children help feed mulberry leaves to the worms. Grandmothers teach young women how to work with the delicate thread. The ancient art continues, passed from hand to hand. Silk has found new uses too. It is used in medicine for stitches that dissolve. It is used in technology. Scientists are studying silk for making flexible electronics. The thread that dressed emperors might one day help build computers. Around the world, different cultures have different relationships with silk. In India, silk saris are worn for weddings and special celebrations. In Japan, silk kimonos are valued as works of art. In Italy and France, luxury fashion houses still use silk for their finest creations. The thread that once was forbidden is now everywhere. It is global, but it is still special. It is ancient, but it is still modern. So, my friends, we have traveled a long way together, from ancient China to the markets of Rome, from trade routes across deserts to workshops in Europe. We have followed a single thread through thousands of years of human history. What does this story teach us? Silk teaches us about human curiosity. Someone, long ago, saw a caterpillar wrapping itself in thread, and they asked, "What if I could use that?" That simple question changed the world. Curiosity is powerful. Silk teaches us about desire. The desire for beauty, the desire to feel special. That desire built roads across continents. It connected cultures that had never met. It created trade that still shapes our world today. Silk teaches us that secrets cannot last forever. China tried to keep the secret for thousands of years. But knowledge wants to spread, and when it finally does, everyone benefits. Sharing makes us all richer. Most importantly, silk teaches us about connection. Every piece of silk fabric connects a weaver to a wearer. Every trade route connects one culture to another. The Silk Road was not just about buying and selling. It was about people meeting people, ideas meeting ideas, beauty traveling across the world. The next time you see silk, touch it. Feel its smoothness. And remember this, you are touching a thread that connects you to thousands of years of human creativity and wonder. Think of the Chinese empress in her garden. Think of the Roman woman wearing her first silk dress. Think of the monks carrying secret eggs across mountains. You are part of this story too. Every time you seek beauty, every time you learn something new, every time you connect with someone from a different place, you are walking the Silk Road in your own way. The forbidden thread is not forbidden anymore. It belongs to all of us now. And the connection it represents between East and West, between past and present, between all people across time, that connection is the real treasure. I hope this story brought you wonder. I hope it made you see the world a little differently. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Stay curious. And remember, sometimes the most ordinary things hide the most extraordinary stories. Goodbye for now.